My name is Elliot Newton and I'm the Biodiversity Officer for Kingston Council, and welcome to the fourth episode of Reading Nature. We're working with the library service to bring you short little videos to you to try and show you all about the amazing wildlife that we can find just on our doorsteps in Kingston. And tonight we've got a very special episode. We're currently standing in the heart of Elmbridge Meadows Local Nature Reserve, a beautiful nature reserve, one of the 12 nature reserves that Kingston has. It's part of the Hogsmill Valley, so there's lots of four nature reserves along here following the Hogsmill River, and it's a beautiful green corridor and great for wildlife. And the reason the sun is just going down as I'm speaking, because this evening we're hopefully going to be looking for my favourite mammal species, which are bats. Across the world we have about 14,000 different species of bats. Some are as small as a bumblebee and some are big flying foxes, so they're really different body shapes and they're absolutely fascinating mammals. And in the UK we have technically 18 species of bat, 17 of which are breeding. Unfortunately, one of those 18, there's only one male left, and he's a greater mouse-eared bat and he lives on his own in Bognor Regis. But all of the other 17 species, we have them breeding across the UK. And 11 of those species you can find in London. And hopefully tonight we'll try and find some of those species. So bats are absolutely incredible, fascinating creatures. They're our only mammals that can fly. So bats across the world eat various different things. We have fruit bats, and some people are scared of blood-sucking bats, but they are very rare. There are very, very few species of bats that suck blood. But in the UK, all of our bats eat insects, and our bats in one night can eat about 3,000 to 5,000 insects, which is absolutely incredible when you think about it. So bats can live for an incredibly long time. They live for, well, it's been recorded they've lived for up to 40 years, or just over 40 years, which is absolutely amazing. So the year in the life of a bat is really interesting, and this time of year, which is autumn leading into winter, bats are starting to think about going into hibernation, what we call torpor, and they'll spend over the winter months, all nestled away, sleeping when it's nice, when it's really cold and there's not much food to eat. And then when spring arises, they start coming out, and then, oh, another bat flew over my head, absolutely amazing. And then when spring comes, they wake up from their hibernation and they start flying around, start feeding. And then over the summer is when they give birth to their young, and then in the autumn time is when they typically mate, and then they go into their hibernation phase over the winter. So it's a really fascinating yearly cycle, and they can live for around 40 years, which is absolutely incredible. So bats have an incredible way in which they eat their food. They have this way of foraging called echolocation, and which is by a way the bats produce this really high-pitched sound. They use it, they scream this sound out and it bounces off objects and bounces back to them, and it helps form a picture, a bit like how a submarine sonar works, and helps use the sound to formulate a picture of the surrounding environment. But a lot of people think that bats have really bad eyesight, but bats actually have incredible eyesight, and they have really sensitive eyes. So light pollution is a really big problem for bats, because they don't like all the beaming lights, which actually stops them from being able to eat, and it stops them from being able to see properly because it's like they're being dazzled. Now, the sun has set about 15 minutes ago and it's starting to get dark, and we're already hearing bats already, aren't we? You heard some bats, it's really cool. And every bat, and we can actually try and listen to the echolocation using these amazing little boxes that we've got. And every bat has a different level of echolocation, a different frequency that it uses. And we can work out by the pitch of the sound that the bats are making to try and work out what species it is. And we can also work out what they're doing. So when they're getting close to eating something, they speed up their little echolocation sounds, and that is when they can call it the feeding buzz. It sounds a bit like a sound, and that's when they're just about to eat a little insect. We've already seen them already, haven't we, flying over our heads, but we just listen out for it. And one bat we might hopefully see when it gets a bit darker is this bat here. And this is actually my favourite bat that we have in the UK, and it's called the Dorbenton's bat. And this bat is specially designed, specially evolved to live on our rivers. And the reason why, because our rivers and our water is a really good way for insects to live. So insects will come out of the water, and that's where and then there'll be lots of insects around our rivers, and these guys will come and eat them. And what they do, they've got amazing back feet, and these back feet act as big nets, and they fly just above the level of the water, and they catch the insects in their feet, and as they're flying, they'll scoop them up and eat them. So hopefully we might see some of those too. Really cool. We've got to listen out and see what we find. So bats are really interesting because different species fly in different areas. Some fly really close to the river, some fly above the trees, and they all occupy different sort of niches where they're eating different insects, so they don't compete against each other. What all bats love our rivers and our sort of hedgerows, sort of linear features within the landscape, which are important ways in which they navigate. So the hogs mill here is a really, really important place for that, not just because insects are being generated from the water, but also because they use it as a highway which they're going back and forth, and that's why while we're standing here, we're just seeing bats zoom up and down past us. So this evening we've seen pipistrelles, both common pipistrelles and soprano pipistrelles. We've also heard a nocturnal fly high up, so we're hearing lots of bats, which is really cool. And listening out. Can you hear them? Oh, there one goes. The sound of a tawny owl. And this is a really, I know we're not talking about tawny owls today, but this is a really important time in the year for tawny owls, because it's when tawny owl male and females are calling to each other to improve their pair bond. So, yeah, fantastic. Did you hear it? How cool was that? Oh, hopefully you'll call again. So it's actually the female, while the male goes the quick, and the male does the tweet, and the female does the twoo, and it's them calling back to each other. So when you hear twit twoo, it's not just one owl, it's normally two. I see, and that's the quick. That's the sound of the tawny owl. It's great. We have. I'm not going to talk about owls. I'm going to talk about owls all the time, but we'll do another one on owls. Have you guys ever seen a tawny owl?
I think so.
They're like a nice brown owl, and they have a little bar down here which is really distinctive.